All right, welcome to the May Association Essentials Series. And today is Governing Documents 101. As a reminder, you can go to the HOA Living website, hoaliving.com, under training and find all the Association Essentials Series. Down at the bottom of the screen, example there, previous session recordings, and you can watch hours and hours of Association Essentials. Just a reminder that on Tuesday, June the 27th, we'll be talking about documentation and how to cover yourself as a board in what you should keep for documentation for your records of your association. And then you can see the rest of the year's schedule. We got back from Dallas, Texas last week, and we had 4 members of the immediate HOA Living family and several members of the extended HOA Living family in Dallas last week. And congratulations to Kari Ross, our VP of Community Management for Minnesota, and one of our developing relations managers for earning her Professional Community Association Manager designation, becoming the 8th PCAM working for the HOA Living group of companies. We have one candidate that, at least one, that will be working on it this year. So we'll have 9 and several more that are along the way. And I was honored to be sworn in as a member of the CI National Board of Trustees last week as well. It was a great conference and a lot of great networking and relationships built. We want to also officially welcome Legacies Management in beautiful Louisiana. Actually just flew back from there yesterday, and Ashley and her crew had a great event on Monday night that picture's from. We were able to announce their alliance with the HOA Living Network. So we welcome those of you from Louisiana that are joining us today, and had a great education event too on Monday night. And I'm just, I need to not be in Texas or Louisiana and lose some of this weight I gained in the last week and a half. And a little more dressed up today than normal. I mean, you guys are worthy of a shirt and tie, of course, but our HOA Living company, which is headquartered in Utah, is being recognized tonight for the 3rd year in a row with a gold medal in the Utah Best of State competition. And we celebrate by dressing up today during the day, all of our employees, and then a group of our employees. We'd love to take everybody, but the convention hall is only so big and lots of companies, and we'll be receiving our gold medal tonight in downtown Salt Lake. So we're super excited about that. Look on our social media for some of our great pictures today. It's always fun to dress up. A reminder that there is an HOA Living Education Scholarship currently open for applicants now through July 19th. The theme is Building Community, and it's just an essay and goes for post-secondary education. Otherwise, to connect with us on our social media accounts, through our email newsletter for board members, through our websites, and through our YouTube channel, where all our education is, and maybe a very cool lip sync to Queen. You might find that on there too. Once again, I'm Michael Johnson. You're welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn. There's a little QR code there. I am proud to be the CEO of the HOA Living Companies and to be your instructor today. All right, let's get started. Governing Documents 101. And for those of you that were with us Monday night in Louisiana, we went through some of this in a very rapid version, so we'll slow it down a little bit today. We want to look at the hierarchy of authority. And once again, the higher up the pyramid, the more weight, the more authority these documents have than those things that filter down below. First thing we want to talk about are federal laws, state laws, local ordinances, and case laws. It's at the top of the pyramid. And we actually just a couple at the beginning of April held a great AES on federal laws that apply to associations. There's a QR code there. I'm glad my team caught me in mid-yawn or something up in that little picture in the corner, but it's a video. And we talked for 57 minutes and 19 seconds, apparently, the bottom left shows, on federal laws that affect associations. So please watch that if you want more information in a detailed manner. But quickly, some of the federal laws that affect our associations are the Fair Housing Act. That's where we can have our legally allowed age-restricted communities. We talked about reasonable accommodations and modifications, pets, service, comfort animals, disruptive residents like hoarders or those with dementia, all protected under the Fair Housing Act. And so it's important for us to understand those. Remember, the Americans with Disability Act is for businesses, and our associations are businesses, but they're generally not affected by the ADA unless they have a clubhouse or a pool or another facility owned by the association, and they are leasing that. Say they have a big, beautiful common room, they have weddings in there, and people outside the association can reserve it. Now you've turned yourself into a business, and you would be subject to the American with Disabilities Act. Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, freedom to display the American flag, over-the-air reception devices. That's our less than 1 meter dish network DirecTV dishes. Obviously, the bankruptcy code we have to follow, and sometimes our homeowners claim bankruptcy. And then anything to do with our fantastic members of our armed services, and when they are called up to duty or gone, they have special protections, as well they should. State laws that affect our associations are many, and they're not all consolidated into one place in any state. Utah has got about 4 primary, but this is not the end of the list. 4 primary. There's the Condo Act, Community Association Act, the Nonprofit, the Reinvestment Fee Covenant, which is money collected at closing, is in the real estate section. Idaho is kind of all over the place. I know they're currently working on consolidating that. And we've just highlighted states that you, our viewers, might be watching from today. If you're watching this and have joined us from another state, sorry we haven't thrown you in here. Arizona, a lot has acts all over the place. And then Louisiana, our new alliance with legacies. Here's several of the acts that could affect you and your association. Governing documents. So we talked about laws and statutes. Governing documents are all these other things that are boxed in red. Everything else that affects your association, that are the recorded word on how things are going to run, what the requirements are. And let's go into these in detail, starting at the top. Now, every state is slightly different. In Utah, the Utah statute says that the recorded map, plat, or plan and the CC&Rs are equal, of equal weight. Other states the plat is number one, and then the CCNR. So CCNRs can't conflict with the plat. But in Utah, it says they're one and the same. Also remember that the plat, the declaration or CCNRs and bylaws are recorded at county recorders or at the recorder's office. Our good friends in Louisiana have parishes, not counties, right? So those are recorded. Articles of incorporation are filed with your state's Department of Commerce. And we call, each state puts a little spin on it, might be the Secretary of Commerce or the Department of Commerce, but that's your business entity, and we'll get into that. Your rules, regulations, and resolutions are typically not a recorded document or a filed document, but we'll talk about some examples of when that might be a good idea. So this recorded map, plat, or plan. Most important document to only subject to federal laws, state laws, case laws, local statutes. The recorded map, plat, or plan, then here's an example of that, where what it does is it's defining where the lots are. This is an example of single family detached, but you might have a condo building, you might have townhomes where they're next to each other. So it defines the lot that I own. If I go buy a lot in this association, what exactly am I buying? And it plat or plan will tell us exactly where those corners are and what we own, where the common areas are, what common areas might be exclusive use or limited common areas, if they're utility easements, and who owns the road. A lot of times it'll say private or public underneath the name of the road, and that's important. Are you, the association, maintaining it, or is your local municipality maintaining it? Next in line are our declarations, our master deed, or our CCNRs. Typically, declaration is used in a condominium sense. Master deeds are used for cooperatives, and CCNRs are used, covenants, conditions, and restrictions, for all of our other associations. I'm seeing a lot of newer documents from the last 10 years that intermix these terms. So it used to be 25 years ago, you saw a declaration, you knew it was for a condominium, it said condominium declaration. But now we see declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions, or CCNRs. And, you know, it's typically in articles and subsections, and this is where we'll see effects of non-payment, our architectural controls, property rights, conditions or uses of property. Can we put a pool in our backyard? Do we have to have fencing? What kind of fencing do we have to have? The homeowners, those who buy the lots or the units or the homes, what are their rights and responsibilities? And what is the responsibility of the association back to the homeowners or the members of the association? All those are going to be found in a declaration. Additionally, architectural standards, design guidelines. There's our fence and our pool examples. We often will see pet restrictions in the CCNRs. Parking, who can park where? Always a hot topic in our associations on where, you know, can we park on the roads overnight? If we park in our own driveway, does it have to be a currently registered vehicle? A lot of documents require people to park in their garages, or at least it says the garage can't be used for storage, causing a vehicle to have to park outside of the garage. All a million different examples, all that would be found in the declaration or the CCNRs. Noise, how we treat home-based businesses. Are there rental restrictions for nightly rentals, or for what is the length of term of a rental lease in our community? Is there a maximum number of homes or units that can be leased of any kind, short or long term, all found in declarations, CC&Rs. Next are articles of incorporation. So looking back at our hierarchy of authority, this follows below the plat and the CC&Rs in hierarchy. This is the association's articles of incorporation are going to say a short purpose, to be a homeowners association typically, what the structure of the membership and the leadership of that association will be, and it will list specific powers that the association has. The bylaws now are the document that tell us where meetings are, when they will be, who's required to be there, what percentage of the group has to be there to have quorum. That is a big part. Bylaws are for administrative operations of the association. When the elections are, what the terms are, what happens if someone resigns, can there be appointments, and the duties of the board, duties and powers of the board officers and committees. This is, and generally, and on this document, right, it's lower down, still recorded in most states, but it's at the bottom. And sometimes because of that, it's easier to amend bylaws than it is the CC&Rs, which generally requires 2/3. It's capped out at 2/3 in some states. It can be more in other states. But the bylaws a lot of times might say can be amended by 50% or by a majority of the board. So sometimes people make a mistake and they're like, well, we want to ban boats being left in driveways or on the side of houses unless they're behind a fence. And they go and they, let's say, let's put it in the bylaws because it only takes 3 of 5 board members can make that change. You can't do that because that, remember, those use restrictions are in the CC&Rs, the declaration. Bylaws are for meetings, elections, and duties. The administrative running of the association would not be appropriate to put a use restriction or covenant in the bylaws. It happens. I realize it happens, and it might have happened in your community. That's okay. Go ahead and let's get that amended and get put into the right place. Then last but not least are our rules, regulations, and resolutions. And why is this at the bottom of the hierarchy? Well, rules, regulations, resolutions can be passed by your board. There might only be 3 board members in your community. And this is where we're going to say, hey, the park is open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. or there'll be an owner comment period in meetings. Owner comment period are in a lot of state statutes as well. Or we're going to have our meeting on the 3rd Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. at the library. Whatever your rules and regulations are, they generally can be passed by just a majority of the board. So here, if your CC&Rs say this is, and I talked about this in Louisiana Monday night, say you're a no pet community, you can't pass a rule and say, but pets under 10 pounds are allowed. Because the higher document, the CC&Rs say no pets, that has to be amended to allow pets of 10 pounds or less. So remember where the key takeaway from today is this hierarchy of authority. And if it's lower down the hierarchy, you cannot have something that contradicts or is contrary to something higher up, right? The federal law says that satellite dishes of 1 meter or less are allowed in areas which homeowners have exclusive control. That's the federal law, the Over-the-Air Reception Device Act. So if your CCNRs and a lot older CCNRs say there will be no satellite dishes in this community, the federal law trumps it. And if your plat says there'll be no, in the little fine print there'll be no chain link fencing, you can't have in your CCNRs styles of fencing allowed chain link, because the plat says no chain link, and that one would trump and would win. Now, sometimes the CCNRs have no, they're not clear, or that has contradicting messaging. Then the board via resolution can do a clarification and can expound, just can't be opposite of what's in that higher document. So once again, some of the things rules and regulations can do is you can have for adoption of an annual budget where board meetings are held, when examples about alleged rule violations. If you are having a hearing with a homeowner who's in violation of X rule, and then you decide to give them some sort of variance, that's a rule, regulation, resolution. Needs to be documented, it would go here. And then different policies and how things are used in the community. Several states do have statutes. In Utah, for example, condominiums do not have this policy in law, but non-condominiums do. So everything else that's not a condo. And the rules have to be sent to the entire membership 15 days before a board meeting where it's going to be discussed. The membership doesn't vote, but they have a right to come and make comments on it before the board adopts that rule. And then if the owners don't like the rule that was adopted by the board, this is in Utah, then they can, if they get 2/3 of the owners to agree, then they can overturn the board's decision. You got to know your local state statutes. It's not the same state to state. Now, do I think if you're changing a major rule in your community and your state statute says the board can do that without consent of the owners, I still think it's a good best practice to have a town hall meeting and go over with the owners the thought process and get their input and their buy-in. You do that, the chance of people following that rule is going to increase. So here's some examples of some rules, regulations, and resolutions. Easy for me to say. 6 months post jaw surgery, it's starting to work. But rules, regulations, and resolutions, collection policies, design and landscape guidelines, fence guidelines. I'm a big proponent to always have exhibits or graphics in your rules that helps people learn. If you're saying only these kind of storm doors or screen doors can be installed, have pictures, have make, model, put visual pictures of what you're expecting in your rule. It's going to help with compliance. Now, remember, we talked about that rules, regulations, and resolutions aren't recorded, except in some situations. And I'll give you one example. Remember, when you record things at the recorder's office, you're giving notice to the entire world that this document is going to affect this property. We have a condominium down in Provo, Utah, called Belmont, and they are student housing for a religious university. So there's special rules. And if the owners don't follow that rules, it can cause the whole condo complex to lose its authority, its ability to rent to college students from that religious university, which is a pretty big market. And so they made a rule and said, if you don't do this, there's a fine. You got to turn in all your paperwork all the time. and they wanted there to be no question. And so they took that resolution regarding student housing, and they recorded it at the county recorder. You can see the stamp up in the top right corner. It was entry 95,211 in 2010. This is page 2 of 3 of that document. But there might be times where another example we have is we had a 60-year-old condo building, and all the windows were original and really old and needed to be replaced. The association, it's a common heater, boiler for heat, and they needed, like, they were wasting so much money in utilities because of these old windows that weren't very weatherproof any longer. And they said all homes in this condo complex have to replace their windows with this kind of window by 5 years from the date of this rule passing. Well, if I'm buying a condo 2 years later and the association passed and the windows haven't been replaced, and association passed a rule that I have to replace them now within 3 years, what a great way, by recording it at the recorder's office, to give me, a prospective buyer, notice that would come up when I'm closing on the home, and the title company or the attorney, wherever you do closings in your state, would say, hey, did you know that the windows have to be replaced? They were about $10,000 per condo unit. That was pretty important to information for them to pass on to future owners. So those are a couple examples of why sometimes you might want to record a resolution. It's giving everybody notice. What are some of my recommendations when it comes to the governing documents and the hierarchy of authority? Read, remember, enforce, consult, and communicate. Read, get to know your governing documents. If you're on a board, I say this over and over, I said it Monday night in Louisiana, you need to know your documents and highlight them and put tabs, ask questions, understand what you're being asked as a board member to enforce. Consult with association attorneys, community managers, community members, to ask if it's time to update sections or to change sections or amend sections, and run by, make sure what you want to do is legal. Remember, when drafting and adopting resolutions, that you still have to apply with all the laws and statutes. You have to define the roles and responsibilities, and you need to define processes and timelines. If you have, say, that example on the replacing the windows, they didn't want it to be a financial burden, and so they gave people 5 years. But at 5 years, what they said is the association would come in and replace them, be way more expensive. That was all communicated. So define processes and timelines. Communicating and approve changes to owners in your association. I mentioned having town halls ahead of a big change. Communicate through the process, no surprises. We need not fear opposition or passionate feelings about what we're doing. The idea is to communicate it. I know in our country that if you are really loud and opinionated, even though you might be in a very, very small minority, that we can bully our ideas out to the rest of our community. That's okay to have that passionate discussion, but in the end, majority rules and the state statutes, your nonprofit corporate act in your communities, allows the board to make these difficult decisions. And folks need to, as management, we don't care if you have pets or not in your community. We don't care if you allow electric vehicle charging stations or not in your community. Our job is to enforce what is there according to the desires of the board on how strongly we enforce those things. But when an upset minority opinion owner comes in and they're on fire, I'm like, look, your documents already have right here on how we can change this. And you have to go get a vote of 2/3 of all your neighbors, not 2/3 of who come to a meeting, but 2/3 of the entire community. So here's the draft language. We'll help them with the language. If you can go get 2/3 to agree with you, then that is a super majority and we can make that change. Don't be afraid to communicate and to give options to that vocal minority so that they can feel heard. And then they go around and see that they're not, that people don't agree with them. Some of them still aren't going to go away, but most of the time they're going to see, and maybe living in that community is not the best place for them. All right. So that was, this is what I'm not done yet. We have a AES that we did called the Intersection of Business, Governance, and Community not too long ago, and you can scan that QR code or go to our website and watch that. It's a really good hour discussion on working in your community. Don't forget to enforce your documents. If you make a rule, enforce it. If you don't want to enforce it, change the rule, change the CC&Rs. That's what we want you to do, and we can help you do that. All right, now we're done. Q&A. We're going to open it up. If you have questions on the material, I know we all have questions on the material presented today, raise your hand on the Zoom there down at your little, if you're on a normal, there's down at the bottom, you can raise your hand, and Neil is going to guide us through some questions.
All right, we got Richard who has a question. So Richard, you can unmute yourself now.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael. So we have in our community, we have one of those passionate homeowners that you're talking about, and he is trying to suggest that any rules that we create, he is proposing or pushing that they get voted on by the members. But from reading the CC&Rs and from what you're saying, it seems to me that they are put together and it is a board decision on what gets created. And so, I mean, we want to have, like you said, have some kind of an open forum where we can share rules as we're developing them and they can provide comments. But in the end, we're really not keen on taking a vote. Yeah. Any thoughts about that?
No, and I think the statute in every state supports that. That power, that's a power of the board to make rules and regulations. His option is to go and amend the CC&Rs and the section where it talks about rulemaking authority, and it might be in the bylaws, that the board has a specific power to make reasonable rules and regulations for the community. If he wants it to be that all those are voted on by all the owners, that is an amendment to the CC&Rs or to the bylaws, which would require probably a 2/3 vote. So, so that we can even help him draft that language, but then he has to go get the 2/3 of all to
which is always a challenge.
That's the only way that could happen, because the state government says, hey, we do want to let you run your own association. Here's a default if you don't have other language, but that's really his only way to do that. And you can see, I mean, it's the same, it's different, but it's the same idea of Are we going to get 3 landscaping bids and have the entire community decide in a big meeting which lands? That's why we have elected officials. If he doesn't like the decisions made by those elected officials,
Get on the board.
get on the board.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So in light of what you're saying, the board would create rules and regs, and then, but you're suggesting in general, we want to have a forum where it's more like we are informing the community, sharing with the community what those are. We're allowing for input, and then the board can decide after that if they want to make any revisions.
Yeah, the Utah statute, you're Utah, right?
Yes.
In Utah, the Utah statute is for non-condos. In condos, there's no statute. In the non-condo world, any rule change that is other than, technically it's a rule change to move your monthly meeting from a Wednesday to a Thursday. We're not talking about those kind of rule changes. But if you're changing a behavior or compliance issue by rule that you're allowed to do, the Utah statute says you must notice the owners with a link to the draft rule 15 days before the board meeting where the board would approve it. And you must provide at the board meeting an opportunity for homeowners to discuss it, but there's no vote of the homeowners. There's no, all it is an input tool, and the board still is the one who makes the decision. Then there is some things within 60 days, if they want to go try to get the homeowners to reverse what the board, there is some of that in there, but it's basically the same way as amending a CC&R. It's 2/3 of the homeowners. You have to call a proper meeting. But yeah, I think anytime it's going to be controversial, it's a good idea. Even and what I've seen is a homeowner like that at that board meeting will say, well, I make a motion that all rules be approved by all owners.
Yep.
That motion's out of order.
He's already tried to do that.
Yeah, the board, a homeowner cannot make a motion at a board meeting. And so if it is a point, you might want to have your attorney come to that board meeting and just kind of go over. A lot of them will do it at, if it's your first interaction, and you might even get it for free or just for an hourly rate, because sometimes they don't listen to us. They don't listen to you. They will listen to an attorney.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
I think, so somebody typed a question on this one of the opposite. They don't have any excited owners who want to participate. In fact, they've got a whole community that's pretty darn apathetic.
That's
what
weird.
are some thoughts we never have apathetic communities. We never struggle to obtain quorum for annual meetings.
Right.
Some thoughts or tips and tricks to kind of help with that process.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about giveaways, right? Also, and we had a nice discussion about this in Louisiana on Monday night, to mix your annual meeting or your important meetings with a social function. So we're going to have a barbecue, and at the first 30 minutes or the middle 30 minutes is going to be a meeting to talk about an issue. So you're using food or giveaways or ice cream. See, now I'm really just telling you all the things that gets me to come to a meeting.
Is it lunchtime or something?
It's lunchtime. and so all those things are ideas. Let's get it out of our head that we have to have a formal meeting at the library, or at City Hall or at wherever. You can do this stuff on the fly, do it at a park or close off a street or do it in the front yard of the association or something. Give people the other reason to come and then sneak in a meeting.
Yeah,
I noticed, but I think we've had pretty good success. Neil knows that when we get a new community and we've been told there's a lot of infighting and harsh feelings and things like that, we'll just order an ice cream truck, right? And we'll have the ice cream truck come and say free ice cream between 6 and 7. And we meet the homeowners, the new management and the board. And like if you can be angry when you have ice cream going in
You're doing it wrong.
then something's wrong. Exactly.
Yep.
Anything
Yeah.
else, Neil?
One other question. This one's a fun one. What are the 2 to 3 key liabilities for board members?
Well, you have a lot of liabilities. I mean,
I was going to say quite
people will sue us for everything. I'll say the 3 key tips are educate yourself, read all those governing documents, know what you're being asked to do and enforce. 2, coming to events like this, right? Webinars, the attorneys do them, the management companies do them. There's a lot of websites. Join the Community Association Institute. All those things are going to show a judge, if you were to be sued, that you were doing the best that you could do. And then 3, we talked about this in Louisiana Monday night, associations get sued for non-uniform enforcement of rules.
Yep.
I know this guy, he's my neighbor and he's just having hard times. We're going to let his yard go. But this guy a couple blocks away, man, be right on him and enforce that landscaping requirement. That's when you get in trouble. So I would say educate through your documents, educate through general programming in the institute, and then 3, make sure you treat everybody the same.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Did I see a hand pop up?
I do have a hand, Joan, but she also typed it, so I'll allow you, if you want to unmute yourself, you can. But the question was doing an annual meeting in person versus in Zoom or some kind of electronic format.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Joan.
Okay, yeah, I just recently came back onto our board. Was on for many years, about 10 years ago. And I know that during the pandemic, they did a lot of Zoom things, and we're back. And now that we're back on the board, we're still doing Zoom meetings and the Zoom annual meetings. And we used to do our annual meetings with giveaways and things like that. And we always had great participation. So I just wanted to know if there's a reason, maybe something we can talk about. We would like to try to see if we can go back to having it in person and maybe get more people to participate.
Yeah, and I would say that you having more participation via in person instead of electronic is the rarity. We've seen involvement increase because of electronic meetings, because people can participate from anywhere and everywhere. There is the ability to have a combined hybrid meeting where you have it in person and then you also have an electronic, but it's hard. People can't hear when someone in the back asks a question that doesn't get through the Zoom, but there's nothing requiring you to have the virtual meetings. I know we give a discount in management fees for all virtual meetings versus in person, but that's really, you know, your community the best, Joan. And if you feel like you would get better participation by having that meeting in person, have that meeting in person.
Well, and we've seen great success to the point of let's have a barbecue meeting. Maybe the actual election is done electronically.
Yeah.
Right? The business of the meeting, the election of the board, or the special assessment or the adjustment of the CC&Rs, have that vote actually be electronic so somebody can do that from the comfort of wherever they are. But let's have the community building piece as well of let's do a community barbecue, let's have an ice cream truck, let's have a, whatever.
And I'll tell you what, the barbecue never tastes as good through Zoom. Never does.
It's rough.
We
It's
have
rough for sure.
we have done that in the past. We had ice cream socials and things on weekends. So we did that when I was on the board before. So
Yeah, so you know some of the tricks to do it, and it's really hard. Like, I like the idea of once a year of having a gathering at least of everyone together, if that's what works for your community. There are no state statutes. State statutes allow for electronic meetings, but there's nothing that prohibits you from meeting in person at all.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joan. Anything else, Neil?
I don't think anything else has come in.
Very good. Let's just pop up.
We
Nope.
spoke. Oh, somebody's saying, somebody's asking about updating those CC&Rs, making changes to CC&Rs. The typed answer for those that haven't been following along is communicate during the process. Here's why this is important. Here's where we're at so far. And once those changes are approved or disapproved, communicate afterwards.
It is definitely a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Yeah.
And you want to have multiple town halls. I love the idea when you need a major rewrite or a rewrite in whole of putting a committee together and getting people into that process, buy-in from those. The board gets it. The board understands the documents need to be reviewed. If you send it out there and no one comes, and it is going to be the board doing that. The thing I really like about the last, 5 to 7 years is the ability to send those out for approval. I always joke, right? We could change the CC&Rs to say one thing. Instead of you paying us assessments, we are going to send you $100 every month. And we would still not get enough people to vote just from apathy. Having electronic voting methods has really helped the number of people, because you got to reach that 2/3 of all owners. Typically, having electronic ways really helps those percentages go up. And you have a meeting, kickoff meeting, you can do it in person and give them a bowl of ice cream or barbecue and get their sign off. You got to stagger it multiple ways. It is definitely a marathon, not a sprint.
And then she followed up with another typed question, doing amendments versus amended and restated docs.
Yeah, I mean, if you're only going to redo one thing, I think an amendment is fine. And but make sure on the website where it has the original document that you've put a big red box and struck it out and said, see amendment passed June 18th, 2023, and then have that document. I even like the idea of putting that amendment at the back of the original document, so it's all in one place, not multiple files. But if you're changing many things, boy, as management, we love it when you amend and restate the whole document so it's all clean and together. And so it really depends on the size, the importance, but you can file just a little one-page amendment, but make sure in the original document that goes to title companies and realtors and mortgage companies and prospective buyers and your homeowners that you've crossed out or circled and said, see amendment on that particular issue.
Yeah. Joan has another one, or at least she's raised her hand, so we'll see what she's got.
It was still up from before.
Oh, maybe so.
Okay, so let's go ahead and close it. Please get a hold of us if you have any other questions. There is the 3 QR codes for our 3 largest management companies that are a part of the HOA Living Network. We'd love a 5-star review as a thank you for this education session. You scan that, it'll take you right to their Google page, and you click on the review, a new review. Those mean a lot to us. If you have anything else that you would like to pass along, feel free to get a hold of us directly. Once again, on Tuesday, June the 27th, we will be talking about documentation, how to cover yourself. I will bring my Harry Potter cloak of invisibility. That's how I cover myself. Thank you very much for your time. Have a very, very happy and safe Memorial Day. We are so grateful for all those who have given the ultimate sacrifice for us to have the freedoms that we have, and to have HOAs where we can have healthy, vigorous discussions. Once again, I'm Michael Johnson. I'm the CEO of the HOA Living Companies, and thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next month.